guys, and welcome back. Today we're going to do a Wiki Wednesday Whispers. Today our topic is going to be tennis, and today we are trying our same setup we used in the last update video. Today, however, we have tried a sock as a pop filter, so let me know what you think of that. Okay, so let's get started though. Tennis is a racket sport that can be played individually against a single opponent, singles, or between two teams of two players each, doubles. Each player uses a racket that is strung with cord to strike a hollow rubber ball covered with felt over or around a net and into the opponent's court. The object of the game is to play the ball in such a way that the opponent is not able to play a good return. The opponent who is unable to return the ball will not gain a point, while the opposite opponent will. Tennis is an Olympic sport and is played at all levels of society and at all ages. The sport can be played by anyone who can hold a racket, including wheelchair users. Didn't know that. The modern game of tennis originated in Birmingham, England in the late 19th century as lawn tennis. It had close connections both to various field games such as croquet and bowls, as well as to the older racket sport of real tennis. During most of the 19th century, in fact, the term tennis referred to real tennis, not lawn tennis. For example, in Disraeli's novel Sybil, Lord Eugene de Frey announces that he will go down to Hampton Court and play tennis. Makes me wonder, what is real tennis? The rules of tennis have changed little since the 1890s. Two exceptions are that from 1908 to 1961, the server had to keep 1 foot on the ground at all times, and the adoption of the tie break in the 1970s. A recent addition to the professional tennis has been the adoption of electronic review technology, coupled with a point challenge system, which allows a player to contest the line call of a point. Tennis is played by millions of recreational players and is also a popular worldwide spectator sport. The 4 Grand Slam tournaments, also referred to as the majors, are especially popular. The Australian Open, played on hard courts. The French Open, played on red clay courts. Wimbledon, played on grass courts. And the US Open, also played also on hard courts. So that's the end of the introduction. Next is the history section. Historians believe that the game's ancient origin lay in 12th century northern France, where a ball was struck with the palm of the hand. Louis X of France was a keen player of jeu de paume, a game of the palm, which evolved into real tennis and became notable as the first person to construct indoor tennis courts in the modern style. Louis was unhappy with playing tennis outdoors and accordingly had indoor enclosed courts made in Paris around the end of the 13th century. In due course, this design spread across royal palaces all over Europe. In June 1316, at Vincennes, Val de Marine, and following a particularly exhausting game, Louis drank a large quantity of cooled wine and subsequently died of either pneumonia or pleurisy, although there was also suspicion of poisoning. Because of the contemporary accounts of his death, Louis X is history's first tennis player known by name. Another of the early enthusiasts of the game was King Charles V of France, who had a court set up at the Louvre Palace. It wasn't until the 16th century that rackets came into use, and the game began to be called tennis, from the old French term tennis, which can be translated as hold, receive, or take, an interjection used as a call from the serve to his opponent. It was popular in England and France, although the game was only played indoors, where the ball could be hit off the wall. Henry VIII of England was a big fan of this game, which is now known as real tennis. During the 18th century and early 19th century, as real tennis declined, new racket sports emerged in England. Further, the patenting of the first lawnmower in 1830 in Britain strongly believed to have been the catalyst worldwide for the preparation of modern-style grass courts, sporting ovals, playing fields, pitches, greens, etc. This in turn led to the codification of modern rules for many sports, including lawn tennis, most football codes, lawn bowls, and others. So next we're going to do a little bit of ear-to-ear alternating. So for the next few sections. Origins of the modern game. Between 1859 and 1865, Harry Jem and his friends Aguirre Pereira developed a game that would combine elements of rackets and the basketball game Boletta, which they played on Pereira's croquet lawn in Birmingham, England, United Kingdom. In 1872, along with two local doctors, they founded the world's first tennis club in Leamington Spa. In December 1873, British Army officer Major Walter Clopton Wingfield designed and patented a similar game, which he called Sprigsticke, meaning ball playing, and was soon known simply as Sticky for the amusement of guests at a garden party on his friend's estate of Nachtwild Hall in Llangollen, Wales. These names are hard. According to RDC Evans, turfgrass ergonomist, sports historians all agree that Wingfield deserves much of the credit for the development of modern tennis. According to Honor Godfrey, museum curator at Wimbledon, Wingfield popularized this game enormously. He produced a box set which included a net, bowls, rackets, balls for playing the game. And most importantly, you had his rules. He was absolutely terrific at marketing, and he sent his game all over the world. He had a very good connections with the clergy, the law profession, and the aristocracy, and he sent thousands of sets out in the first year or so. In 1874, the world's oldest tennis tournament, the Wimbledon Championships, were played in London in 1877. The first championships culminated in a significant debate on how to standardize the rules. In the U.S. in 1874, Mary Ewing Outbridge, a young socialite, returned from Bermuda with a Sprigsticke set. She became fascinated by the game of tennis after watching British Army officers play. She laid out a tennis court at the Staten Island Cricket Club at Camp Washington, Tompkinsville, Staten Island, New York. The first American National Championship was played there in September 1880. An Englishman named Owe Woodhouse won the singles title and a silver cup worth $100 by defeating Canadian I.F. Helmuth. There was also a doubles match, which was won by a local pair. There were different rules at each club. The ball in Boston was larger than the one normally used in New York. On the 21st of May, 1881, the United States National Lawn Tennis Association, now the United States Tennis Association, was formed to standardize the rules and organize competitions. The U.S. National Men's Single Championship, now the U.S. Open, was first held in 1881 at the Newport Casino, Newport, Rhode Island. The U.S. National Women's Singles Championships were first held in 1887 in Philadelphia. Tennis also became popular in France, where the French Championships dates to 1891, although until 1925 it was open only to tennis players who were members of French clubs. Thus, Wimbledon, the U.S. Open, the French Open, and the Australian Open, dating to 1905, became and have remained the most prestigious events in tennis. Together, these four events are called the majors or slams, a term borrowed from bridge rather than baseball. The comprehensive rules promulgated in 1924 by the International Lawn Tennis Federation, now known as the International Tennis Federation, Jim Van Allen. That same year, tennis withdrew from the Olympics after the 1924 Games, but returned 60 years later as 21 and under demonstration event in 1984. This reinstatement was credited by the efforts by the then ITF president Philip Chatier, ITF General Secretary David Gray, and ITF Vice President Pablo Lorenz, and support from IOC President Juan Antonio Samaranch. The success of the event was overwhelming, and the IOC decided to reintroduce tennis as a full medal sport at Seoul in 1988. The Davis Cup, an annual competition between men's national teams, dates to 1900. The analogous competition for women's national teams, the Fed Cup, was founded as the Federation Cup in 1963 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the founding of the ITF. In 1926, promoter C.C. Pyle established the first professional tennis tour with a group of American and French tennis players playing exhibition matches to paying audiences. The most notable of these early professionals were the American Vinnie Richards and the Frenchwoman Suzanne Lenglen. Once a player turned pro, he or she could not compete in the major tournaments. This resulted in a schism between the amateur and pro tennis ranks that would last until the advent of the Open era. In 1968, commercial pressures and rumors of some amateurs taking money under the table led to the abandonment of this distinction, inaugurating the Open era, in which all players would compete in all tournaments, and top players were able to make their living from tennis. With the beginning of the Open era, the establishment of an international professional tennis circuit, and revenues from the sale of television rights, tennis's popularity had spread worldwide, and the sport had shed its middle-class, English-speaking image, although it is acknowledged that this stereotype still exists. In 1954, Van Allen founded the International Tennis Hall of Fame, a non-profit museum in Newport, Rhode Island. The building contains a large collection of tennis memorabilia, as well as a Hall of Fame honoring prominent members and tennis players from all over the world. Each year, a grass court tournament and an induction ceremony honoring new Hall of Fame members are hosted on its grounds. I think that's going to be the end of it for today. The remaining sections discuss equipment, manner of play, services, officials, junior tennis, match play, shots, tournaments, players, and in popular culture. If any of those sound interesting to you, I strongly encourage you, check it out. Today we are reading on my phone. It's the first time. I don't know why I've never thought of that before. I've always read on my laptop. But this makes way more sense. This was way easier. So I think I'll do this in the future. I feel really dumb for not thinking of this before, but I was really interested to learn the history of tennis. I've recently decided to start playing tennis or trying it, so in about 2 weeks from when I'm filming this, 2 weeks minus a day, I think, from when you're gonna see it, I will be starting. I'm gonna take a clinic and do some lessons and give it a try. I got a tennis racket. I played a couple times with my girlfriend. She's showed me a few things because she's played when she was younger and whatnot. So hopefully it goes well, but that got me interested in this, and I hope that you guys have learned something and enjoyed listening to the history of tennis. So I hope you have a good night. Bye.